So let's get started. My name's Pam Bivens. I work at Duke University now training clinicians on cultural competence, implicit bias, microaggressions, unconscious bias, which is also implicit bias. So we tend to hear either or term depending on the person. And all the difference that makes working and living in the world very challenging. Even though we have so much in common in this room, we're so uniquely different and diverse. Some people have a really hard time with people who are not exactly like they are, like they think they are. So that's why we need to focus on difference, respecting what that difference means, respecting how interaction with other humans means from other cultures, other parts of even the state you were born in or the city you come from. We're all very different. There's really nothing wrong with that until that difference creates a very negative situation, which is very easy to happen as we've learned in our world today. So again, I work at Duke University. I graduated from Hampton University, very proud alum of Hampton Institute, HBCU. Okay. Started out wanting to be an anchor woman for a major news network. Wasn't quite the time in the 80s. I'm dating myself a little bit. So I got a master's in higher education administration from George Washington University at their cost. Important, because I worked there. Very important. Want to earn another degree, work somewhere that supports you achieving that degree and pays for that degree. Those are the kind of things we don't focus on. Then got caught up at Los Alamos. Now, what was a woman wanting to be an anchor woman doing at Los Alamos National Laboratory? Managing a, I'm sorry?
Public relation?
No, not quite. That would have been kind of okay, but actually managing their historically black colleges and universities program. Also their HSI, Hispanic Serving Institutions, Tribal Colleges program. That's how I met Michelle and Tommy Rockford, if any of you know Tommy as well. So my two proud students, I'm very happy with that. And from there, I got into healthcare. Don't know how that happened. Didn't plan it because I'm not a good fan of hospitals. I'm a germaphobe, huge germaphobe. So that's where now I teach cultural competence to clinicians to avoid them using their stereotypes and bias of other people to mistreat them or to not give them the same treatment that they give other people. You will find in literature that people of color receive less aggressive treatment, which is why we have the term health disparities. We have another term, health inequity, that keeps us tend to be sicker than other people. We live in communities where we tend to be sicker than other communities based on what's around us. Those are the things that I focus on in equity in education and health. If you receive poor health care, you cannot learn and you cannot build a life and a career. So those are my two passions. That's why this is so very important to me. So we do live in a world of difference. We live in a global and technologically advanced society. Not as advanced as Wakanda, okay? But advanced nonetheless. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So as you move around in your career, your academic career and your ultimate career, in a global society, we're not working with just black people and white people. Because for some people, that's what diversity means, black and white, male and female. Those days are way beyond over. You all realize that, right? Okay, that's fabulous. That's an awesome start right there. So cultural differences, we have to navigate cultural understanding, cultural awareness, global awareness. If you don't know how to communicate with someone based on who they are, not just their culture, there could be generational differences that impact how you communicate and receive information. What you see is not always what you get when you're walking toward another human being. That person may be male to female transgender, female to male transgender, gender nonconforming. All these new terms that our LGBTQ population is giving us, we have to learn to respect that. So we have a lot of research to do, folks. Cultural competency, cultural diversity is an everyday learning experience. It is a lifelong journey because our world changes every day thanks to technology, thanks to human difference, even to artificial intelligence, which humans actually create, right? It does make a difference. So what I'd like for you to walk away from this from today is defining cross-cultural awareness and competence. You are preparing to be academically competent in a STEM field, right? The administrators who work with you are administratively competent. The faculty that work with you are administratively and culturally competent to teach you as much as they can beyond the textbook. Very important when you have faculty of other cultures, ethnicity, it teaches you difference and how to respect it. Okay? Discuss human difference based on beliefs, implicit bias, and stereotypical attitudes. We all have implicit bias as a part of human evolution. We cannot surpass that. Implicit or unconscious bias are one and the same. Depends on who you're speaking to. An academic may use implicit. Regular lay folks will use probably unconscious. It's a much more familiar world. But we have to focus on moving beyond our stereotypes that we grew up in with our communities, our families. You know, your parents might say, don't hang out with people like that. I don't want you hanging. People like that are different because they don't have your shared lived experience. That's what your family's trying to get you to understand. But don't let that be a barrier to getting to know people. That's critical. If you don't learn about other people, how do you grow as your own human self? And you always want to grow because you want to be the best that you can be. What did Michelle say this morning? We want to play the game well because we're in it to win it. Every day you're in it to win it. And that's dealing with human difference, academic challenge and excellence, your human and professional experiences, build your ability to have credibility, keep your ethics in check, because people are checking us out, because what? You know, we're special. We're unprepared. We attend historically black colleges that are just a level up from high school. Anybody ever heard that? People refer to HBCUs as a high school? Oh, absolutely. That is totally incorrect, am I right? Because the work you do does not par with high school. Okay, so we have to work to help people change their bias and stereotype of what an HBCU degree offers, whether it's undergraduate, graduate, or professional. That is our job. I'm sorry, but that is our job. Okay? Explore and understand how cross-cultural differences impact human interactions. Totally impacts how people perceive us and how we perceive them. In 1/5 of a second, research says we determine someone's race by their face. Is that good enough to determine who someone is?
No.
By no means, because there's a whole human body we're working with. And verbally is only 7% of what we're communicating. 93% is your body language. Speaks volumes. Actions speak louder than words. Anybody ever grew up hearing that? That's where that comes from. Your body language is primarily what people are watching. Describe why understanding cross-cultural awareness will make you successful and a valued team player. Does that make sense? If you can cross-culturally communicate, respect others, you are a successful team player and you're a valued team player. Oh, I can send that person anywhere in the world and they can manage that project. Or they can help with whatever that engineering, whatever it is, or the scientific component of what that is, because they understand and respect the culture they're going to and the culture of the people they're working with, or the cultures of the people they're working with. That makes you hugely valuable, marketable. It will take time to nurture you, allow you opportunities. Okay, this is not our world. We know that, right? I'm sorry. The dominant society is whose world this is. But we want to be a valued and valid, incredible team player within that with ethics. And we want to let them know that we have that. Because we are educating people as other people educate us. Okay? It's an exchange. It's a human exchange. Every single day of your life, whether it's in the grocery store, in the gym, in the classroom, it is a human exchange and we have to focus on that. Because what do we tend to do these days? I'm going to put my phone. Anybody have a phone? I'm sorry, you're charging, aren't you? Forgive me, guys. Oh, here's one that's closer. What are we doing? Do we acknowledge the other humans in our space? That is a huge problem, my people. Huge. It is totally unacceptable. Thank you. Totally unacceptable. You're no longer communicating with the human that's in your space. That is making us disconnected as people. Our humanity is in huge jeopardy. I think we all see that. Huge jeopardy. We have got to learn how to turn that around, because that's not communicating at that point. When you sit next to somebody, what if they're in distress and you don't see it? You could save a human being's life, but you're sitting there all focused on whatever and all that, Candy Crush and all that. We have to maneuver and work our brains a lot more intelligently than that, okay? We do. That is our job. Yes, sir.
Have you heard recently, I heard it last week, in England, they have a ministry of loneliness. No, people are lonely, they are just all...
Oh, a ministry of, yes.
Lonely. They just last week, there is a ministry of loneliness. I don't know, 500,000 of people, they survey, they are not communicating with anybody.
That's right. A ministry of loneliness.
Like the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, this is one of them.
That is critical. It is a public health crisis.
Yeah.
A public health crisis. Even in STEM fields, you need to be aware of the humanity of the world that you are living and working in. Mae Jemison, Dr. Mae Jemison, former astronaut, physician, spoke at a National Society of Black Engineers conference years ago. And she told the students, you have got to focus on the humanities, because you have to be connected to society to do your science, your research, to develop your engineering projects. That is so critical. I've always remembered when she said that. Because as a person from the soft skills, academic side, liberal arts, if you will, to me that is very critical, because I'm not all that adept at the side of the brain you guys are on. What side of the brain is that you know? The left side. Yeah, I'm more right side too, okay? I accept that now. Took some years. But we have to know how to communicate across global, generational, gender, all that, while you're also learning your academic excellence and the beauty of what that means to your future, your career, and this country and the world. Because you're going to make an impact. You're already making one now because you're sitting here. I hope you know how privileged you are. The word privilege is not a bad word. It's how it's used and who it's targeted toward. You all are greatly privileged. I have been privileged. I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've been allowed, because I was supposed to be an anchor woman. Sharing the accuracy of the news, the non-biased, which is kind of what I enjoy doing now. Based on research, I can share evidence-based information and still kind of, you know, got this like in the TV screen, okay? I don't know. So cross-cultural awareness is so critical, because we cannot always tell who someone is based on the race you assume from the face you're looking at in 1/5 of a second, folks. Black and white is way gone. Look around this room. The unique differences are very apparent. Totally over. So we have to educate folks to understand that. So I have a little exercise from the Public Broadcasting Service, PBS. I need one volunteer to come up and sort some human faces and put them in the categories they quote unquote belong in. Being mindful that if we cannot categorize people in comfortable boxes based on our socialized lens, we are very uncomfortable. Is that true? When we can't figure out who someone is based on our own personal socialized lens, based on our own lived experience, sometimes we question people and say, oh, no, I'm not dealing with that person today. I don't have time for that. They're assuming this and they're thinking that, and oh, she thinks she's cute. You don't even know who she is. You know how we do, ladies. She thinks she's cute. Just because she's all polished or however she carries herself, whatever polished means in a larger society, we know that we have to adapt to that, right? Okay. We're being very honest in here today, okay? So I need one volunteer who's going to be brave enough to sort all these beautiful faces into the 4 different categories allowed.
Come on, stay on.
Okay, come on. Let's grab you a chair. Can you grab a chair real quick, please? So she can sit here. So she's going to sort all these faces into specific categories that PBS has given us with the specific faces. And then we'll click next, and we will see the outcome of her selections. And we can take it from there.
Hair?
Hair,
This
face
is hard,
structure,
actually.
Hair grows out.
features, thickness, or
Nose.
small featured or large featured. They always say African Americans or Africans look swollen because of our features. Okay. If you have keener features, you probably have more European blood than other people who are you're supposedly more aligned with. For example, I did my Ancestry.com. I have Irish, Iberian, Scandinavian, Caucasus, but primarily
This is
Ghanaian.
hard.
Very interesting, right? It pulls more from the matrilineal side of my family. It doesn't really pull from your father's side. I had a physician tell me that. I was very clear in that. Because I know I have American Indian in me from my dad's side.
It goes through the mitochondrial.
Right, exactly. So that's why the American Indian didn't show up, and I was quite disturbed at the beginning until I understood that. So you're seeing the sorting going on, and then we're going to have a chance to double check it. In the last session, only 5 were right.
Oh no.
And then he got a little help from someone from another culture who said, no, move that one to this
Oh
one.
no.
It was still
This
wrong.
is hard.
Okay.
This was really hard, actually.
It is very hard. So
Okay,
hit
it's gonna
next.
give you the correct answer now?
It will. So click out of close that one out because we're not really talking about that today.
Excuse me, did you say
PBS.org.
PBS.org?
It's a PBS project.
This is a,
So see how many you actually got right.
Wow. Oh my God.
So your socialized lens, folks, will cause you to lose a project, lose money, be
This is hard.
fired,
The faces were blurry.
your credibility questioned. So now we have to get out.
Okay.
So you see what that can do to your career. The assumptions you make can more than likely be totally wrong. So you will communicate with someone inappropriately. You may address them inappropriately. You may shake hands when they're not accustomed to shaking hands. For example, in French, you shake hands more lightly than we do in the United States.
What's that called?
If you shake their hand very firmly, you are showing some sense of superiority, which is offensive, which means you're messing up. Okay? So we have to be mindful of how different we get to we have to communicate across cultures. You have someone from France on your team in the United States. You have to know how to address them appropriately. How do we greet someone in France?
bonjour, comment ça va, ça va bien? I become like
That's okay.
They kiss on the cheeks, right?
Well, they kiss on both sides. But they also do that in Saudi Arabia. Okay?
the men, not the woman now.
The men specifically, not the women.
Yeah.
The men. So what happens is, how do you greet someone? Right. So you have to know these things so you don't lose the deal, cost your company money, and get fired. And then your credibility is destroyed in your field. So how are you going to get another job? Those are critical pieces of cross-cultural and global awareness and communication. It is very amazing how differently we do things in the world. Let's move on and see where we are now. Okay, let's put it back in presentation mode. This is in the Prezi format. It is very challenging sometimes. So I'm cautioning you. It may not be the best format to use. So implicit and unconscious bias. We have a little piece here from YouTube where hopefully it will not buffer too much and work very nicely.
New
for us.
research from the
Okay. Uh-oh, it's buffering. So it's going to explain implicit and
fields
unconscious
of neuroscience
bias
and social psychology has shed light onto the concept of
from the UK, which is United Kingdom standpoint. Okay.
But what exactly is unconscious bias, and how does it affect our behaviors and decisions? Unconscious biases are simply our unintended people preferences. They are formed by our socialization, our personal experiences, and the representations of different groups in the media. These experiences act as social filters in which we make assessments and judgments of people around us. Research tells us that human beings have a natural tendency to place individuals into social categories. These categories are often based on visual cues such as gender, cultural background, age, height, or body size. We also categorize based on social background, job roles, religious identity, or political affiliation. The unconscious brain uses associations based on social categories to develop biases. For example, if we are constantly exposed to women as primary school teachers or receptionists, or men as plumbers and organizational leaders, these associations become wired within the human brain. The unconscious brain uses social categories to make unconscious judgments about people who are similar to us and people who are different from us. A common form of unconscious bias is affinity bias. This type of bias impacts talent processes in organizational decision-making, including how we recruit. Managers are more likely to hire people who look similar or with sounding names to them. Work allocation. Managers are more likely to assign key client projects to individuals within their teams who they have an unconscious affinity with. Performance. Where there is some kind of affinity, managers are more likely to spend time informally discussing positive contributions to the team and will focus on development and future work plans. For those where there is little affinity, managers are more likely to question past performance. The conversation will be less friendly and even hostile at times. Unconscious bias often results in a set of micro-behaviors. Examples of positive micro-behaviors include supporting the ideas of someone with who you have an unconscious affinity whilst in a team meeting, or simply wanting to have coffee with someone like you. Examples of negative micro-behaviors include checking emails on your phone whilst talking to a colleague, or cutting someone off in a meeting. Often our intention is not to make biased decisions, and through a focus on conscious thinking, and by creating inclusive work cultures, we can learn to control our unconscious judgments and mitigate the impact of bias on our talent programs. For more information on the nature of unconscious bias and how to mitigate its effects, contact ENEI, www.enei.org.uk, info@enei.org.uk, telephone 0207 922 7790.
So your biased brain, again, is a product of evolution. To protect yourself, protect those around you, your family. If you feel like you're in danger, the hair on the back of your neck kind of stands up, you get a little feeling. You have to respect that. You may be in danger, but based on how you're raised, the communities you come from, the religious affiliations or other affiliations you have, you're going to look at people a certain way. And you cannot help that. Okay, that's human, it's normal. But it's how you move past that bias and stereotype that makes all the difference. And how you then communicate with people on the team, communicate via webinar, your facial expressions, your hands moving all over the place. For example, in France, they ask you, you place your hands on the table while you're eating. Your hands are always on the table while you're eating. It's a cultural thing. It's what they prefer. Us, we put our hand in our lap and eat with our right hand, right? So there are different things that you have to know if you're in a business meeting in a setting of a restaurant. For example, in Saudi Arabia, the men will eat together, the women will eat together.
And you eat with your hand.
You eat with your right hand because your left hand is considered filthy. Considered filthy. But then when I went to Morocco, people are just eating with both hands. And I asked for a fork. It's like, no. No, not quite. And they had them, tourists from all over the world, they have to be prepared to accommodate. We have to be prepared to accommodate our colleagues from other cultures, which means you have research to do before you leave to visit that culture or when you have a colleague coming from that culture. There's work you have to do yourself to show that you're accommodating, respectful, you're cross-culturally or globally aware, of what diversity is in that community or that culture or for that person, the deal will go better, communication will go better, and you'll probably be more successful than your colleagues just by knowing that you have to do the research. Google is not always your best research, folks. Please be mindful. Evidence-based research by people who are prepared, such as your faculty, not Google always, and certainly not Wikipedia. Because we can all go in and make adjustments on that, whether we know something or not. And that is not substantial, it's not proven, and it's not worth the effort you put into it. So evidence-based research is still critical today. So your biased brain sends messages. It tells you who someone is. And your behavior then speaks to that, right? What do you see here? What does your biased brain tell you? In 1/5 of a second, your brain tells you who someone is based on their face. What do you have? Give me some examples of who you see. What do you see?
Black lady.
A pretty black.
Okay.
I said she's mixed.
Okay.
Or mixed because of the texture.
Based on your lens, that's what you see, right? Okay. What else do we have?
Actually, her hair, she did it herself.
She did it herself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Natural.
Okay, fair enough. So let me give her away. Janet Mock. Has anyone heard of Janet Mock? M-O-C-K? Janet is transgender male to female at 15 years old with the support of her parents. After some challenges from her dad, she was his firstborn child, a son. Janet did not feel right in her body. Her mother knew it. So she had the sexual transgender surgery at 15 years old outside of the United States because she was born in Hawaii and so her dad is African American, and her mom is Hawaiian. Janet is on Oprah Super Soul Sunday programs every once in a while. She has 2 books out, one entitled Redefining Realness, My Path to Womanhood, and so much more. And she has a more recent book, I can't think of the title of it right now. But a lot of people are very shocked to realize that she's a male to female transgender person. So she tells people that transgender pretty is not the same as cisgender pretty. What is cisgender? The gender that's on your birth certificate is how you self-identify in the world. So I'm cisgender, female on my birth certificate, and I'm a girly girl, as my husband says. Janet says cisgender pretty is not the same as transgender pretty. Because when somebody realizes that she's transgender, oh, you're pretty for trans. There's some qualifiers in there. But as a cisgender person, if they don't know her background, they say, oh, you're gorgeous. But they don't make those other identifying factors. Okay? So what you see is not always what you get. Has anyone learned that terminology? It is not what you get, folks. You have to be very careful, which means, again, do your research to find out how someone is, who someone is, what culture they come from, how to communicate appropriately, etc. Okay, let's do one more bias brain exercise. Who do you see?
From the previous picture, I can, maybe this is us.
He transgender too, Mom. I see white man.
Middle-aged white.
Maybe Italian.
He looks like he likes cats.
Okay. So your biased brain came up with some very interesting, socialized, predetermined, and stereotypical answers. So Dr. David Treuer, PhD, his last name is Treuer, his mom is a tribal court judge, so he's American Indian. His dad is an Austrian Jew who's a Holocaust survivor. So we would have made some critical mistakes with everything you said. And he is a cisgender man. He's cisgender. man.
Boy. There you go.
Right, exactly. Or heterosexual.
Yeah.
That word is out the window. We don't use that word anymore.
Which word?
It's
Heterosexual.
So cisgender is the replacement for that one.
If you will.
Okay.
Based on our LGBT new
Okay.
vocabulary, awarenesses. You also have to be aware of what you see is not always what you get. Can't judge a book by its cover. I grew up hearing that. Now it has a lot more meaning than it ever did, now that I'm in the diversity and cultural competence field. So David writes for Esquire magazine, the Washington Post, LA Times. He's a journalist. Okay?
So what's his last name?
I think it's Treuer, Truer, PhD. So if anyone wants to look him up. I select pictures based on how I know people are going to probably respond and get it wrong. So, you know, I'm doing my little bias thing as well. Okay? So be mindful. This is a YouTube video. Don't label me from, no, this one is not from Pricewaterhouse. Let's hope this one works because it's a, oops, I'm sorry. Really good message. Okay, here it is. 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So you have to watch it. Okay, it's going to buffer.
Ladies and
See her label? Is that annoying?
You're late. You forgot something?
You see her about that? Okay. No, we don't. So we're constantly watching and checking out people 1 quick second, making determinations. So people are labeling you just like you're labeling them. So there it is. That's the label that matters, folks. What you do yourself. Don't let people label you, and then you fall prey to their labels. You know who you are. You know who you are creating yourself to be at this point in your lives. And know the path will not be straight. I'm sure somebody's going to cover that today. It goes here, there, and all up over the place. And sometimes we get a little stuck. But don't let people's labels create your being in a stuck place. Life changes, the world changes, and you adapt and change with it. I was supposed to be an anchor woman. Well, in my mind. So I went to undergrad to be an anchor woman. I studied mass media arts, communication. The one thing that I knew would be transferable throughout anything else that I might do in the future after that, the communication skills, I had no fear of writing, presenting, speaking in front of people, whereas people who are paralyzed by having to speak in front of others, having to write something at the drop of a hat, and I'm thankful I don't have those concerns, but I do have the left brain issue that I told you I've already accepted about myself. Okay? I'm a liberal arts kind of chick, okay? Soft skills kind of chick. But know who you are. Know your strengths and weaknesses and shortcomings, because you're going to have people around you who can enhance those so you don't have to worry about them. Okay? Michelle and I were great at Los Alamos. She was technical. I could always get her help on something. When she needed the soft skills kick, I would step in and say, look, you can't be that aggressive. Talking to the scientists. They're shorter than you. They may not have a PhD. And they're going to treat you a certain way because of that. And you don't even realize you're treating them a certain way because of their quote-unquote shortcomings in your eyes. That's human, folks. We can't help it. But we can realize it and get past it. Okay? Critical. So then business practices. Critical, because you're going to be working with people from all over the world. Projects, developing, what have you, and all these wonderful things you get to do. A Chinese delegation of a potential business partner arrived at the U.S. offices and was not greeted in the lobby by a senior executive. That's already giving you a clue that that's very important to them. People of Chinese descent. The nonverbal message conveyed was that the Chinese visitors were not sufficiently important enough to warrant being greeted by a senior executive. So they're offended. They might just fly on back home and say, forget it. These U.S. folks don't know what's happening. They have no respect for us. They don't want our business. They don't want our money. Why am I coming here to waste my time? Be mindful, okay? Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. A Silicon Valley company almost lost a business deal when a top executive of a French company arrived in California on a 7:30 p.m. flight and was met by a limo driver sent by the firm. The driver took the Frenchman directly to the hotel. What could have been miscommunicated here based on the French culture? They want to meet you, and they also expect to be taken to dinner to get to know each other. So that Frenchman was very offended. He again could have gotten right back on the plane and said, these Americans just don't have a clue. Things they already think anyway. Okay? It's Americans at that point. It's not people of color or African Americans or black people. So we have to be mindful what the expectations are from people from other cultures to come do business with us, to complete the portion of the project. For example, they mentioned this morning about the atomic bomb being developed at Los Alamos. People from other laboratories came to Los Alamos to help put that bomb together. This was not Los Alamos scientists. It was a collaboration of scientists from other laboratories. So be mindful, yes.
So how you say, like, we have to accommodate others? Is it like, it should be vice versa?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
how you say, like, he felt offended, like, the people should have met, like, they should have met him and took him out to dinner. But it seems like he didn't research for American society. Like
Maybe
how
he
we do
didn't.
things.
Maybe he didn't do his part,
You
but
know
he's
what I'm
coming to
saying? Like,
visit us.
Yeah.
So we have to be the accommodator, the greeter, the appropriate person with the etiquette appropriate to greet that person. And you trying to make money, folks, that's why you're building a career, because it's about making money to take care of student loans, your family when you eventually have one, paying back family who helped you go through school, getting that first car, the apartment, the home. It's about making money. When you blow the business deal because you're culturally unaware or culturally incompetent, if you are academically incompetent, what happens?
You fail.
You're right.
Yeah.
So what do you do here? You fail. Okay? So we have to know what our role is on the team, trying to build a relationship, nurture relationships. Cross-culturally, global awareness is so critical today. It is always incumbent upon you to be the one who knows. Because the assumption will be that, they don't travel. Has anyone here studied abroad yet? Who plans to? Oh, my goodness.
Who studied in Atlanta? No, abroad is Atlanta.
He's here to trip me up. Okay.
All right.
So we have to be mindful that our role is to always be more prepared. Okay? Because the assumption is that we're nowhere close to prepared. They still think of us as first generation college attendees. And that is very, very inaccurate in a lot of cases, okay? That your parents are not professional. Those are the assumptions that are made about us sitting at HBCUs, no matter complexion. A white person goes in under affirmative action at a historically black college, or they weren't good enough to get into other schools. There are assumptions that are made, and they could be totally inaccurate. But we have to help people rise. We have to rise above it to let people see. We are aware. We have been taught. We have been raised to know that our global awareness is critical to ensuring our academic success and then our ultimate career. Because you all are in a field where you're going to be working with people from all over the world. There's absolutely no question about it. Your faculty are from all over the world. Where are you from, Mustafa?
Egypt.
Egypt. Does that mean anything to anybody? Did you do any research to find out what might be appropriate? Inappropriate? All these kinds of things? Academics is not about textbooks. It's about being aware of the world around you. Your humanity, current events. How's that going to impact your trip? Current events. Going to another culture.
Knowing how to engage that culture.
That's it. Greeting. Okay, the handshake.
How to dress.
How to dress appropriately. Okay. Saudi Arabia, women have to wear the blouses above the collarbone and dresses and skirts below the knee. Culturally appropriate.
And the thick socks.
Thick socks?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you shouldn't show your
Well, you can't
legs.
show your legs.
Yeah,
ankles,
you
what
have
have
to
you.
wear like, a pants, and after that you can wear a skirt, but you cannot show your legs.
But thick socks is not quite the gig, is it?
Yeah, but some people,
Okay. The source is right here. You can ask. Study abroad, guys. That is so critical.
Or travel.
Travel abroad, but studying abroad could be a little less expensive because your school helps or your family will help you study abroad. I helped 2 nieces study abroad. But when you're out there on your own making your own money, it's up to you to save that money to go on your trip. So try to do things when you're in an academic situation or in your new career. Hopefully the company is global. You'll get to travel and see the world and meet new people and learn new things. Okay? So, other cultures, you prepare for a trip, meeting your guests. You do your research. Again, don't focus on Google and Wikipedia. Focus on business etiquette in other cultures, things like that. Get the researched information. Learn about import and export laws of other countries so you know how that product needs to be marketed, how it's going to move from one country or culture to the other appropriately. Critical stuff. Learn about different management styles. If you have to go to Korea to work for 6 months, you may have a manager over there that is Korean. If you don't want to lose your job while you're in Korea, you need to do the research on how to appropriately maneuver within the culture and to get the job done. Learn about business protocols and ethics. Critical, because your ethic could be challenged if you don't know. Your credibility is challenged. And then people will say, I don't want that person on my team ever again. You get back to the States, it's like, you don't have a job anymore. The pink slip was waiting with your last check. Cubicle was already cleaned out. Take your stuff home with you. We're done. Learn about cultural norms that are everyday occurrences in the U.S. There's so much we do here that is so inappropriate in other cultures. We have no concept. Pointing your finger in certain cultures is inappropriate. Pointing your index finger specifically. Doing this is cool in other cultures, but could be sexually offensive in others.
I think somebody said, you need to go to the bathroom.
Or can I get a ride?
There you go.
Like back in the day. But we have to be mindful of what our body is telling people as opposed to what our face may be saying. So one example I can think of in the French culture, doing this, like we're saying goodbye to someone, is inappropriate. It means no. So while you're doing this and smiling and you're doing this, They're thinking, okay, which one is it? Yes or no? Yes or no? Those are things we have to be careful about. When you're beckoning someone in Chinese culture, what's appropriate? Asking them to come to you. We do this, right? Hand face down, moving in a scratching motion. Appropriate. Those are things you need to know. If you're going to be global, build a career in a field that is primarily people from other countries studying STEM fields here in this country and then going back to their country, they have a bicultural way of looking at the world. If we don't see other places in the world, we don't get that privilege. And it can harm your career, what your colleagues think of you, your manager thinks about you. You heard how they talk about implicit bias. If managers already don't have a lived experience or connection with someone of color, you might be left out of a lot of things. Which means you're not going to get the career advancement, you're not going to get the good performance evaluations, you're not going to be invited to coffee. You know? But those things are so important to us, right? We want to be treated like we're part of the group, yes.
How do you respond to those types of things in a professional manner? Like when they're not accommodating towards you, but you don't want to be like angry or like aggressive about it.
No, can't afford to be.
Right. So how do you respond to those situations? I know there's not a blanket statement for it, but
Totally not. Depends on how you've been perceived or biased.
yeah.
If you're, for example, transferring from one department to another in the same company, people, call, say, I know so-and-so's coming in your department, over here, da-da-da-da. But based on your human experiences, you're going to have different experiences everywhere. Typically, you might invite them to coffee to let them know that you're open. And you want to have that personal, quote-unquote, professional dialogue. Sometimes we have to not be the aggressor, as it would look, but in a very nice and inviting way. Can we have coffee next week when you have some time? We have to be careful of the tonality of that because we tend to talk loud. So in certain areas, I have to focus because I would, in first grade, told I had a deep voice. They could always hear my voice in the loudspeaker when the teacher went to the principal's office. She would turn the loudspeaker on because when she leaves the room, she said, okay, no talking. Okay, Pam had to run her mouth. With the deeper voice I had then, I don't know what happened. But she said, okay, Pam, I heard you talking. So the bias is created based on the voice, the tonality, the aggressiveness. We're always aggressive, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
But based on our descendant from the African continent, aggression was very important. Go see Black Panther, all that's going to be right there. It is a historical lesson. It is not just entertainment. There are lessons in that movie that are so critical to you understanding who you are and how the world is. I'm going to send Michelle the study guide that I received from a faculty member at Duke on Black Panther. It gives you a lot of history and helps you understand why you are. We're okay the way we are, but in the dominant culture, we are nowhere close to okay, folks. And you have to be aware of that. That is the reality. It's the way it is. Even if you have your own company, you're going to need vendors that don't look like you. You're going to need services from people who do not look like you. But when you're with your own, enjoy yourself. But when you have to have services or be accommodating to other people, you have to know what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Did that help a little bit?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I
Open
hope
and
so.
inviting.
Okay. I'm still learning too. I'm a 2-year-old in the Gen Z population. I'm learning every day, all day from other people and other sources. Critical. Oh, so again, okay, I didn't realize this one hadn't come up. Pointing with your index finger is taboo in Malaysia. If you have colleagues on the team from Malaysia, don't point your finger. In Indonesia, it's taboo to touch the head because it is considered sacred. You may have colleagues from Indonesia, or you may have to go for a period of time to work on a project. In Madagascar, children are not permitted to say their father's name or make reference to any part of his body. So if you don't know where people are from because of your lack of cross-cultural awareness or global awareness or confidence to speak and talk to people from other cultures, or that you identify as different or unique to you, you're going to miss a lot of these cues and clues on where someone is from. 2 Russian Federation taboos are no coats are worn indoors or no lunches on park lawns. So if you happen to visit someone in Russia and you're on your own for lunch and you go pick up a quick snack and you see the nice park across the street and you notice no one else is eating in that park, you need to wrap that sandwich up and find somewhere else to go. Simple things that we do every day can have a totally different and very offensive meaning in another culture. We have to focus on that. Sitting with the sole of your shoe showing. You don't do that in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East, Mediterranean. You don't sit cross-legged or with your, you know how men sometimes sit with their foot up. Okay? And women shouldn't sit cross-legged because the sole of your shoe is going to show. You're showing someone you're culturally inappropriate and you didn't do your research. And they're going to have a whole totally different look when they look at you from now on. And you don't want that, right? So this is Price Waterhouse Cooper's video. Challenge your assumptions all day, every day. Don't make assumptions that you know what's right, because diversity, cultural competence, implicit bias is a journey. You don't just arrive here and say, okay, I'm culturally competent now. There's so much to learn about different cultures and different humans. Saudi Arabia, what was the one about handshake as a reminder?
The shake with your hand, because we use their left hand to wash their mouth.
Okay. Everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, the handshake in France is a little softer than what we're taught here in the United States. Because you don't want to show someone that you feel more superior to they are with a very aggressive handshake. May not have a job when you get home. They'll make that call and say that person was inappropriate, we can't have them coming back. Which makes you a non-valued team member, someone they can't trust to travel abroad or to receive guests from abroad. They already think certain things about people of color in the first place. We all know that, right? That is the reality we live within. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I've worked in a very, very culturally diverse place. Very diverse. We have fabs in Israel, Pennsylvania, Ireland, Pakistan, just different areas. When a person comes in from a different area, sure, we have to respect them and we have to respect their culture. And we need to make sure that they respect ours also. For those from Ireland, always.
Absolutely.
But in the United States, we are not allowed to go to the pub and drink the bar. We're not allowed to go there and drink and like.
Right.
So then at that point, when you tell them, or I will tell them, no, we're not coming in here.
Exactly.
In the United States, this is what we do. And so I'm just saying this to say that, yes, we have to respect their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very good for us to learn different cultures, because when we travel abroad, we go to places, whether it's with our company or on our own, followers, we have to respect them, and they too have to respect us. They have to learn our
Right.
Is there a space for grace?
Of course.
Because people are learning people, and
Of
I think
course.
that people can see your intention.
Sure.
So when you approach people with the proper decorum,
Mm-hmm.
even if at times you may do something that's unknowingly or unconsciously offensive,
Absolutely.
but your decorum says that you're coming from a place of respect and
Right.
grace, sometimes people will educate you and say,
That's
just as
right.
you said,
That's right.
this is the norm and this is how you do it. A lot of times also when Americans approach other cultures,
Mhm.
we don't want to assimilate. And so we bring our Americanized ways into other cultures and we're disrespectful.
Exactly.
So, there has to also be a place for grace and also a place or willingness to assimilate.
Right.
And we saw this with, I think, they took issue with President Obama going to China
Sure.
and greeting in the way that was respectable in that culture. I mean, he was of the frame of mind that I respect people on various different levels.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I interact with a lot of Asian people, and I certainly have been able to interact and engage people as a result of that grace, and it's a two-way street.
Totally a two-way street. Thank you both. It's always the opportunity to educate people. But be mindful, some people do not wish to be educated.
That's true.
They will let you know that, no, you're here now. Like people say, well, if you're here, you speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of us don't speak English very well, do we? So we have to be mindful that it's a two-way street. But sometimes that two-way street can be shut down very quickly. And there won't be any yield or stop signs. There'll be that human interaction in the moment and how you deal with that. And that's being cross-culturally and globally aware and competent, which can take a lifetime to build because we're always changing. We are uniquely ourselves. I've learned to keep a neutral face over my lifetime because I have people say, oh girl, I can read your face from across the room, and I said, okay, I'm gonna work on that. Because I can't have you thinking you know based on your perception and who you think I am and what I might say. Because you're going to be totally off base when I finally open my mouth. And that comes with age and experience and just learning yourself. So respect that. But also take the opportunity and the avenue to grow and learn and listen to other people. You don't always know everything. I know you think you do. I've learned I don't. And I try to listen. And don't listen planning on what you're going to say next. Listen in the moment and accept what someone is saying and then respond. Because a lot of times we're formulating, okay, this is what I'm going to say next. And you haven't heard a word they really said. Maybe the first 5 or 6 words. So be mindful of honing your listening skills as well. How much time do we have left? Okay, so we're going to show challenge assumptions. So I really need you to focus on, I have to do it every day. I work at a university that does not particularly cater to people of color. So we have to, I'm always mindful of myself. Always.
Are you seriously considering her as a candidate?
Just don't trust
She's a woman.
She's a woman.
This is a man's job. She's clearly not educated.
Hey, does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. You call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume. Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships, diverse networks, better outcomes, seeing people for who they really are. People like you, with unlimited potential. We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have them, you can choose to do something about it. It's time to check your blind spots and focus on what's possible.
WC.com/blindspots. PricewaterhouseCoopers. Blind spots are implicit and unconscious bias. And when people tell you they're colorblind, you keep a good eye on them. Because I always tell people, don't diminish someone's color to assume you know who they are, and you cannot treat everyone the same. I have a lot of people who say, oh, I treat everyone the same. I don't think about that. In 1/5 of a second, you think about a whole lot of things, and you think I don't realize it, but I'm doing the same thing to you, so I know what you're doing. Because we're human. So we have to be mindful. Check your bias. We all have them. That is life. That is natural. It's part of human evolution. But look past them. Don't always go to your default on how you communicate or talk with people or work with people. Take a step and think back. Take a step back and think. And say, okay, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to make this person feel very accepted in my space? How am I going to make them particularly comfortable with me in their space? And that's every human. It's not because we're of color. So we have to just be mindful, folks. In the moment, watch your face, your human gestures, because actions speak louder than words. And what you see is not always what you get. Okay? So thank you. I appreciate it. In certain cultures, this means thank you.